Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones. We are back here today as we begin to look ahead at what's to come for Purdue basketball as they move forward after a season that was so good, yet so unfulfilling. Now, it's going to be a much different roster moving forward for Purdue as they look to maintain their position up towards the top of the Big Ten in the 2022-23 season and beyond. We'll take a look at what Purdue loses from this year's team, both by graduation and by the transfer portal. Look at who's coming in and look at who still could be coming in today on the show. And as always, we will answer some questions, hit on a few random thoughts on the way out. Let's dive on in. First, as always, if you don't already, follow the show on Twitter at BoilersBeyond. Gonna have plenty of stuff, always maintaining the conversation this offseason, talking Purdue sports, talking Purdue recruiting. We'll be tweeting from the spring game this weekend quite a bit, so be sure to follow there for all your updates and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. I don't know if it'll be an every week thing over the summer. It will really kind of depend on how often we can get guests going, how often there are real topics to talk about. There are some things I want to touch on over the summer, more focused on the Big Ten and kind of where college athletics are as a whole. So we'll do some of that, try to get some guests on, try to make sure we're still bringing you good stuff. So be sure to subscribe wherever you get those podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, any of that stuff, available wherever. So be sure to subscribe as well. Moving forward for Purdue basketball, you're going to see some serious roster turnover before next year. Now, we're not talking LSU level roster turnover where all 11 of their scholarship players have bolted, but you do lose a pretty good amount from this year's team. You had 3 seniors, all of which have declined to use their COVID year. That was pretty well known from the start that these guys weren't going to do so. Can't really blame them. I can't blame anyone for being ready to move on in life. Eric Hunter Jr. departs as an all-defensive team guy in the Big Ten, averaged 6.5 points a game on his career, 40% from the field, 33% from 3, though he did shoot 43% from 3 this year. Up and down career for him. Freshman year, made some nice contributions on a very good team, playing off the bench behind Nogel Eastern. Sophomore year was probably Purdue's best player on a team that wasn't great, a 500 team, 16-15 before the Big Ten tournament got canceled, but had a really nice year there and got hurt right before his junior season started, hurt his leg, I believe it was, in practice, missed a little bit of time, ultimately never really caught on that year. On offense at least. He had a great season on defense, got absolutely screwed out of the all-defensive team that year, and then had a really nice back half of his senior season, really after Christmas, coming back for the Big Ten time. He was excellent, had a very good season. Sasha Stefanovic departs as one of the statistically best three-point shooters in Purdue history. 226 career threes for him. An excellent career, especially considering, how Purdue got him. We've talked about this on the podcast before. Basil Smotherman leaves the team mid-season, opens up a scholarship. Stefanovic hops on it. Averages 7.5 points a game for his career. Shoots a hair under 39% from 3 for his career. 81% free throw shooter as well. Certainly a good story. Certainly a guy who I think you look at him and he maximized what he could be. And that is one of the best three-point shooters in the Big Ten. A solid piece on offense. He's someone you're going to miss. For what he What he does in the half court is very important. He was your best post-entry passer, which when you have Zach Edey and Travion Williams on the floor, that's very important. Didn't turn the ball over much. Very valuable piece. Purdue will certainly miss him. And then of the departing seniors, your biggest loss, obviously Travion Williams. Just under 11 points a game and seven rebounds a game for his career. Two-time All-Big Ten. He was the Big Ten Sixth Man of the Year here in 2022. You can't say enough about him. He had an excellent career. Came in at 330 pounds or whatever it was. Worked his way into fantastic physical condition. Had a very good career. And the stats don't tell the story of him because he did all of that really not playing a ton his freshman year, splitting minutes with Matt Harms as a sophomore, and then really splitting minutes with Zach Edey as a senior. Williams got the bulk of the minutes his junior year, but not necessarily as much his senior year. And had he played, more of a 25 to 28 minute role, those stats would have been a little more eye-popping, but fantastic career for him, a guy that Purdue will absolutely miss as well. This is essentially three starters you lose. I know Williams came off the bench, but for what his role was, you might as well just consider him a starter. Losing three starters is hard, and that also got harder when the expected news came that Jaden Ivey is heading to the NBA. He did not have a choice there. I do laugh at, anyone who acted surprised or was hoping he wouldn't go to the NBA because, he's going to be a top 5 pick likely, absolutely in the lottery somewhere. He's Purdue's best chance at an NBA star since Glenn Robinson. And Glenn Robinson never, became an absolute superstar, had a good NBA career. But Jaden Ivey's your guy. If you're looking for someone to hitch the Purdue wagon onto, he's going to be an NBA star. His skill set is so translatable to what that league does, to what that league is, and to how that league continues to move. Sure, there may be an adjustment period. Obviously, he's going to have to become a better three-point shooter. Going to need to be better with the left hand. Defense is a lot different in the NBA than it is in college, but he has all the athletic tools to be a great defender. He's out to the NBA, so you lose 4 starters from this team, essentially. If you look at it with Travion Williams as a starter, you lose 4 of your 6 main guys, and that's a lot to lose. That is absolutely a lot to lose from a good team. You also saw this past week some news that, of course, I posted the podcast on Monday morning, feeling good about our episode, and around lunchtime, Isaiah Thompson hops in the transfer portal, and I had said on the podcast, I don't think anyone's going to transfer. I was wrong. Where Jordan was wrong, if you may. But yeah, Isaiah Thompson hopping in the transfer portal. I don't know that I really saw this one coming. I had heard about this a couple weeks ago, but it was a rumor. I obviously didn't say anything on here because I had no idea if there was any truth to it or not. I really didn't think there was, but had a good scoop there from someone. Yeah, it makes sense to some degree. I think this is probably best for both parties. There was a lot of negativity around Isaiah Thompson this year coming from folks on Twitter, folks on message boards. Not great. I had heard it on the goldenblack.com podcast they do. He deleted his Twitter account. I mean, that says something. I'd never really put that together, but Yeah, that's not great. I think that tells you something. I think the negativity was probably a bit much at times, but especially when it got more personal. He would have come off the bench next year. I don't think he would have started for Purdue, at least ideally, but he would have had a role. He's a very good shooter. He had some really good games at Purdue up until that Iowa game this year when he got undercut and hit the floor pretty hard. That was really a turning point almost because Eric Hunter Jr. started to play better then. He got in the starting lineup. Isaiah Thompson was coming off the bench then, with the exception of his game in Iowa City when he had 18. He didn't really put together many big games. I think that was his only double-digit scoring game after that, and he'd had a few in non-conference play. Was excellent against Villanova. Had 12 points, 4 of 5 shooting, was huge for Purdue in that comeback. I think he had 12 against Florida State. So, the guy had some good games. He's going to hop in the portal. This is, without a doubt in my mind, a situation where he will go to a MAC or Missouri Valley type of level and play. I'd be surprised if he stays at the high major level, but he could, I guess. It's really entirely dependent on what he wants, which I have no idea. I do not know Isaiah Thompson, so I have no idea, but certainly a player that I think is very valuable at that level. He can shoot it. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's not an awful defender. He's in the right spot a lot. Sure, his size is limited. He's small, and that's what folks like to go after him for. But overall, it's a loss that if you're Purdue, you can certainly overcome, but, it would have been a senior. You now have 0 seniors, scholarship seniors at least, on your roster next year. That is okay. It's probably not ideal, but it is what it is. And, you just got to wish Isaiah Thompson the best of luck. He'll have 1 to 2 years of eligibility left. Whatever he wants to do with his COVID year, he can do. Still mind-boggling that every player who was on a roster got it. But, yeah, Isaiah Thompson makes it 5 guys departing the program this year from Purdue. So now you look at what's coming in. Obviously, you lose 5 guys, you got to replace them with 5 guys. And Purdue's got 4 freshmen coming in. You have 2 guys that I know a lot about, that I've seen play a lot, and you have 2 guys that I don't know much about, that I've barely seen play, that are more just completely unknowns. So you have Braden Smith, 6-foot point guard out of Westfield High School. That's in the Indianapolis area, for those of you out of state who may not be aware. Fletcher Lawyer, 6'4 shooting guard from Homestead High School. That is up in Fort Wayne. Camden Heide, 6'6 forward, originally from the state of Minnesota. He went to a prep school out in Kansas this year for his senior season. I think he's been hurt a little bit. I think he hurt his foot. So I don't know how much he's played this year. And then you have William Berg, the 7'3 center out of Sweden. So what do I know about these guys? I'll just start with Mr. Basketball in Indiana, Braden Smith, who earned that award on Saturday. Yesterday, as I record this, had an awesome season and was a guy that Purdue put out an offer to last May, I believe, April, May, and hopped on it right away. He committed, a week after Purdue offered or something. It happened quick. And he went and put together an awesome senior season. His performance in the Noblesville sectional was one of the best sectional performances you'll ever see. Got got Westfield to their first ever regional. That was their first sectional championship. I think he's the first ever Indiana All-Star from Westfield. Very impressive. He isn't very tall. 6 foot is what he's listed as. He's not taller than that. From seeing him play in person, he plays incredibly hard. And I know that's one of the criticisms that fans have of this year's team, the Purdue's, that they didn't play as hard as what a typical Purdue team maybe does. They weren't a dive after loose ball. They weren't a team that loved to take charges, stuff like that. That's exactly what Braden Smith is. He is super high energy. He brings a swagger to the game that it's a different type of swagger than Jaden Ivey, obviously. Jaden Ivey was simply, I'm better than you, and he backed it up most of the time. Braden Smith is just a competitor. He's a good shooter. He's a good three-point shooter. I've seen him have really good games. I've seen him have colder games, as shooters tend to do. But he can shoot it, and he's one of the best high school passers I've ever seen. He is as true of a point guard as they come. There will be an adjustment period, no doubt. Some of the passes he makes in high school, those aren't going to fly in the Big Ten. But I think there's enough there, just in terms of his toughness, his ability to shoot, his passing ability. All of those are reasons why I think he's going to succeed at Purdue. I don't know how much of an instant impact guy he is. I certainly don't think he's a starter from day one. Now, I could be wrong there. If you're Purdue, you would love for me to be wrong there, because that would mean he is uber ready for college basketball. I think he can play a role next year. Getting up to the college speed is going to be big. Doesn't play on the biggest AAU circuit, so there's going to be an adjustment. But the kid is simply a gamer, and I think if you're Purdue, you got a good one. Just because Purdue's his only high major offer. He's better than any recruiting services indicate right now. I will say that for sure. And of course, it's cool for Purdue to get Mr. Basketball for the second straight year. And for the second straight year, you get numbers 1 and 2 in Mr. Basketball finishing. Braden Smith won it this year. Caleb First won it. Trey Kaufman-Wren got second last year. And getting second this year was Fletcher Lawyer. An elite shooter. He just won down in New Orleans the high school three-point shooting contest thing. I don't really know what exactly the name is, but he can absolutely shoot it. He had to absolutely do it all this year for Homestead. Was able to do it some. Ultimately, the lack of a second player got them beat by Westfield in the state tournament in the regional game I was at. But he can absolutely shoot it. And I'm very excited to see what happens when he's not having to do the entire share of the load on offense, because that's really what he had to do at Homestead. And he's a guy who fits that consummate role that Purdue's had now with Sasha Stefanovic, with Ryan Klein, with Dakota Mathias, with Ryan Smith. These guys who are pure shooters. And I think he's a little bit more versatile than some of those guys. I do think he'll be able to have a little bit of a mid-range game as well. I think he's just a naturally really good shooter, not just a really good three-point shooter. He's going to be a really good player at Purdue. Another guy that I'm not sure about instant impact, I think he'll see minutes. I think he's ready for that. He will probably need to hit the weight room some. He's a little skinny, So Purdue will want to bulk him up a little bit. They certainly will do that. I wouldn't be worried about that at all. But he's another really good player. I absolutely very high on what he's going to bring to Purdue, especially, the longer he's at Purdue and the more comfortable he is in that system, he's going to be very, very good. The other two, Camden Heide, I know very little about. I know that he won his state championship in Minnesota as a junior last year during the weird COVID year, and I think he was the best player on that team. I don't know much about what class he was in, what the competition's like. I can't tell you much there, but goes to, what is it? Is it Wayzata, I think? However that's pronounced. Wayzata Academy. Yeah, Wayzata Academy. Or no, wait. Wayzata's is high school in Minnesota, maybe, and it's the Wasatch Academy. I'm not positive, but regardless, I don't know a ton about him. I know he is pretty highly regarded. I think he's a top 100 recruit. I'm not positive. I was just on that. Let's see where he is here. 121 in the 24/7 Sports Composite. I don't know a ton about him. I haven't seen him much just because, again, he's been hurt this year, and he is in Minnesota. I'm in Lafayette, Indiana. He's in Minnesota. It's a lot easier for me to go to Westfield or Homestead to see kids than go to Minnesota. So I don't really know. I think just from the little I've seen of him, just on video, he plays that 3 spot. And I think that could be a spot where Purdue is building some options with Brian Waddell and with Camden Heide to add some length that they haven't necessarily had at the 3 spot. It's traditionally been it's been a third guard at Purdue for a while now. And I think maybe if you can add, a guard forward type player there, you're a little bit longer. If they can play defense, that really helps you on defense. Obviously, you got to be quick enough to guard guards playing at the 3. But I think he brings an interesting dynamic. I have no idea what he'll bring to the table next year. If he's been hurt for a lot of this season, that doesn't necessarily bode well. From trying to go and be ready to play in the Big Ten right away. But I don't know. He is a great unknown. And then even more unknown, if you ask me, or really anyone, William Berg. 7'3" out of Sweden. Look, I have no idea. I know nothing about the Swedish basketball system. I know nothing about anything over there, really. Purdue and Utah State were the 2 schools that were on this guy. I don't know what to expect. The last time Purdue took a chance on a lightly recruited giant, Zach Edey turned out pretty good. At the same time, I don't know. I mean, I just don't know what to expect from him. From his video, he's mobile. He is quicker on his feet than most of Purdue's big guys have been. I think maybe Matt Harms is an okay comparison. I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I didn't know what to expect from Zach Edey. I was skeptical there, and I was very wrong. I'm skeptical here to some degree. If anyone's earned the right to take a chance on a big guy, it's Matt Painter. He's been very successful. I think Emmanuel Duwana is pretty much the only one that didn't work out. So I'll say this. Can he have a good career at Purdue? Yes. Would I expect him to contribute at all next year? No. I do not expect that. I think a red shirt may make sense, but I don't know what to expect from him. Maybe he's going to come in and be really good. Maybe not. I have no idea. But you have these 4 guys coming in. I don't know that it's a major instant impact group, but I think long term, it's going to be a very good group for Purdue. Um, Guys that are going to continue to shoot the ball well, hopefully take care of the ball. And you want to make sure these guys are improving on defense because that's an area Purdue has fallen behind a little bit from where they used to be. And that's an area now where they can play a little bit of catch up and get better there while still trying to be as efficient as possible on offense. In terms of potential moves still, there are two question marks in terms of the guys Purdue has now. Number one, is Zach Edey going to declare for the NBA draft? Personally, I think so. I think he would be misguided not to at this point because I think he's a 3-year player. I think teams are going to be interested enough to work him out right now. And then once you get a season next year where he, in theory, will be the main guy at the 5, will be getting, 25, 28 minutes a game there. I don't know what more there's going to be for NBA teams to see. He's probably going to be pretty finished at that point, at least until he gets in the NBA. So I think this year is a good year for him to test the waters, start getting feedback. And then I do think that his junior year, next year, would probably be his last year at Purdue, but that's entirely speculative. I have no idea. That is just guessing on my end, but I do think he'll declare. I ultimately think he will come back. And then, will any more transfers leave the program? I know fans have loudly speculated since January about whether Brandon Newman would transfer or not. He hasn't done it yet. He has posted pictures in Purdue gear since the season ended. I would think that has to be a good sign, right? He's a good player, and I think Purdue can absolutely use him next year. The one thing that I've really been thinking about lately with Newman is, Matt Painter has said multiple times, Brandon Newman's more effective when he's getting more minutes, playing starters minutes, playing 25 minutes a game. If that's the case, if that's to be true, then I think next season's a great opportunity for him because that starting spot at the 2, wide open. Maybe he'll hop in the portal, but at this point it doesn't look like it. I would think that Purdue's all done losing transfers. Now you look at what you can add in the transfer portal. It's crazy out there. Like there's like 1,000 names in the portal or something crazy. It's nuts. It is absolutely insane. If you're Purdue, you need guards. You have 2 open spots for next year. The scholarships, you got 11 taken right now. You've got 13 max. So you have 2 scholarships open. You need guards. That's your need. You don't need big guys. Your front court is incredibly full next year. Edey first, Gillis, Trey Kaufman-Renn, Berg, if he's in that mix. I don't know if you can put Waddell at the 4, maybe. You have plenty of bodies there in the front court. You're in the back court here because all you have is Ethan Morton, you have Brandon Newman, and is that it? I mean, Isaiah Thompson's gone. You got the 4 freshmen coming in. I mean, the backcourt is thin, shall we say. That's an understatement. But you're looking at the portal now, and you never really know who Purdue's top, if they have like a big board, who their big board would be. But this year it's fairly obvious. Nigel Pack is Purdue's main target, as he is a lot of other schools. 6-foot guard from Lawrence Central in Indianapolis originally, has played the last 2 years out at Kansas State, where he was first team All Big 12 this past year, scored 17 points a game, pulled down 4 rebounds, shot 43% from 3. I think his freshman year he dished out 4 or 5 assists a game too. A true point guard. Part of the reason he's in the portal is because Bruce Weber is no longer at Kansas State. That could be advantageous for Purdue, as I'm sure you're all aware. Bruce Weber was an assistant at Purdue for a long time under Gene Cady. Knows Matt Painter very well. That could be, just the cards aligning Purdue's way on this one. If Purdue could land him, he's your starting point guard right away. He is one of, if not the best transfer available right now. Purdue will hope that the pull to come home is something he's interested in. The ability to be the undoubted starter at point guard right away is something that he would be interested in. And the opportunity to be on a good team. I don't say that to slight Kansas State or Bruce Weber, but clearly the last couple seasons there haven't been very good. Pack has not played in the NCAA tournament. If he comes to Purdue, I think that makes next year's team, I never use the term lock, but very, very likely, to be in that conversation. And I think even up towards the top of the Big Ten, if Purdue can land him. He'd be an absolute game changer. The other name that has been floated some, and I know a lot of Purdue fans are going to have mixed feelings about this, Rob Phinisee from Indiana, who broke Purdue's heart back in January in Assembly Hall. Local product, McCutcheon High School on the south side of Lafayette. Purdue recruited him out of high school. Obviously, Eric Hunter went to Purdue. Rob Phinisee went to Indiana. They were in that same recruiting class, and they probably weren't gonna go to the same school as each other. They were gonna split up probably. I don't know how to feel there. It's certainly weird. It's gonna happen eventually. Someone will transfer from Indiana to Purdue or Purdue to Indiana in basketball at some point. Whether that's gonna happen now or not, I don't know. I think Phinisee would be better in Purdue's offensive system than what he was in at Indiana. But, he's not your high-level scorer. You need scoring. Now, to get 2 scoring guards, Pack and another guy, well, that's a big ask. There are mid-majors out there, guys who start at the mid-major level looking to move up. I caution you. These guys put up great numbers at the mid-major level, and a lot of them are very good players. But how that translates to the Big Ten is always questionable. I remember Jihad Proctor. Hell, I think he scored 20 a game at High Point before he came to Purdue. Came to Purdue, had a fine season, in and out of the starting lineup on a 16 and 15 team. Nothing crazy there. That's usually how it goes when you move from the mid-major level to the power conference level. Now, that's not to say that Purdue can't get a mid-major guard who comes in and scores a dozen points a game. But, someone who scores, like the name out there that Purdue fans have talked about some, Jalen Llewellyn from Princeton, who Purdue recruited a little bit out of high school. He scored 19 a game at Princeton. He can come to any school in the Big Ten. He's not going to score 19 a game. Now, one thing to look at with these guys is three-point shooting. That translates a lot better than slashing does. Trying to get to the rim is much different at different levels. At the low to mid-major level than it is the high major level. Three-point shooting's different too. You have better athletes guarding you. Guys are going to be faster chasing you off screens. Guys are going to be more in your grill. But that's something that translates a little bit better. And I think that when you look at these transfers, that's something you can target because, in theory, that should translate okay to the Power 5 level. And then I just wanted to point this out because it's driving me absolutely nuts right now. When John Rothstein is tweeting out lists of schools that a player is hearing from, please do not think that those are the only schools that have contacted this player. Like Rothstein tweeted out, I think 9 schools that had reached out to Nigel Pack. He was first team all Big 12. Everyone should be reaching out to him. If you think only 9 schools called the kid, you are crazy. There is just no way. And then you see that you click on the tweet and all the replies are fans upset at their coach for not contacting this kid. How do you know? All this is when Rothstein reaches out to a kid is it gives the kid a chance to more or less trim his list. Like I had someone reply when I tweeted about this, if you aren't on that list, yeah, you're right. It's probably not likely that you're going to get a kid if you have reached out to him and he didn't tell Rothstein you've reached out to him. That one's weird. I don't expect that, but there are far more than 9 schools reaching out to Nigel Pack. That one drives me a bit crazy, but oh well, so be it. It'll be okay. But just if you see a player and Purdue is not listed on the schools that he's heard from, he may have heard from Purdue. He may not be interested in Purdue. I don't know. This has to work both ways. But wanted to touch real quick, looking at transfers. In theory, Purdue is full for 2023 right now. You have Draven Gibbs-Lawhorn and Miles Colvin committed for that class. If you're Purdue, you wish those two could sign right now because those guys are awesome. Miles Colvin's not going anywhere, and I don't say this that Draven Gibbs-Lawhorn is either, but you would love to get those two just locked in right now because they are awesome. Draven Gibbs-Lawhorn just won the national championship deal with Montverde. You have those two committed, so in theory, you are full. Now, Purdue could land Nigel Pack. He's someone who has 2 years of eligibility. You'll make it work. You always will find a way to make it work, but looking forward, recruiting the 2023 class could be done at this point. There are good players left. I know Purdue is recruiting Xavier Booker from Indianapolis Cathedral, 6'11" forward. I would think you take him if he wants to come, but as a whole, you're pretty tight on scholarships. Now, of course, should players transfer, that changes everything. And in the transfer portal era, it's probably a little foolish to even start looking at that stuff because everything can change overnight. But that is just the current reality. Thought I'd point that out and also just plug, as I said, Gibbs, Lawhorn, and Colvin. That is one exciting class. That would be big time. So I wanted to do this before I hop in Q&A. Reasons to be optimistic about Purdue moving forward. Because obviously the fan base is down bad right now, and I get it. But reasons to be optimistic. Look, you've been around the top of the Big Ten for the last 7 or 8 years. I think it was something like Purdue's had a double bye in the Big Ten tournament in 6 of the last 7 years. That's wild. That's a really, really impressive stat. You've made 4 Sweet 16s in the past 6 years. I will not use the 4 and 5 tournaments stat just because the 2020 team would not have made the Sweet 16 had there been an NCAA tournament because they probably wouldn't have made the NCAA tournament. Still, 4 Sweet 16s in 6 years is hard to do. Not many programs can say that. Your coach isn't going anywhere. Yes, I know that the Matt Painter vitriol is as probably as loud as it's been since 2014 right now, but he's not going anywhere. He is a very good coach. The chances of finding someone who would do a better job are incredibly low, minuscule at that. That wouldn't happen. So you have a good coach who's going to be around for a while. And I do believe this: the talent level that Purdue has is improving. You look at Caleb First, you look at Trey Kaufman-Renn, you look at guys like Draven Gibbs-Lawhorn and Miles Colvin and what Zach Edey has turned into, and you got to be pretty impressed with what this group has. This isn't the classic Purdue team that scraps its way with under-recruited guys by playing hard. These are legit talented guys. I'm very excited to see where this goes. Now, I will also say, and I'll do reasons for concern too, you're a really good program right now. Taking that step up to be a great or an elite program, that's really hard. That is really, really hard to do. You saw it in the Final Four last night. Those are four of the best programs in college basketball right now. Those are all programs that are a step above Purdue right now. Taking that next step to get to that level, that is really, really hard to do. I do think a reason for concern is the fact that the Big Ten's problems in March are absolutely real. This isn't just a Purdue thing. And I know, a lot of these Big Ten schools have been to a Final Four more recently than Purdue. But you haven't seen much success from the Big Ten lately. There's something to that. The Big Ten is not recruiting at a very high level. I think I was looking at the 24/7 Sports rankings. I think Jalen Hood-Schifino at Indiana is like the highest rated recruit in the conference coming in this year. He's in the 20s. He's a really good player, don't get me wrong, but boy, none of the top 20 coming to the Big Ten. God, that's not great. There are some Big Ten issues there, and I will do a full episode about this over the summer, but NIL is here, and I don't know what type of spot Purdue is in, but I think there's plenty of reason to be concerned that NIL is going to hurt Purdue more than it helps it. Some of these collectives popping up across the country, Tennessee giving a ton of money to a quarterback commit. Look, some of this is crazy. The SEC was always going to be the ones that went craziest with this, but Purdue's going to have to compete here. I don't know how they will. I would think that at some point we'll hear some more about what Purdue's doing maybe this offseason. That concerns me a little bit. But overall, if you can get past the emotions of losing to St. Peter's in the Sweet 16, Purdue's in a pretty good spot. It's hard to be in a much better spot than where Purdue is. I know it feels like Purdue has been stuck in this spot a little bit, which to some degree they have been. But I do think you're getting better talent. You're getting there. Purdue has the ability to break through and get to a Final Four. I do think Matt Painter will do it eventually. I do think this program's going to get there. But Purdue's in a good spot. I understand why folks are still a little frustrated, though, because this year hurt. This year was bizarre. Bizarre as can be, really. It is what it is. You got to move forward. And we will move forward to the Q&A. How will adding transfers affect guys on the roster? I know part of this question was what type of transfers is Purdue looking at? I talked about that earlier, guards. How will adding transfers affect the guys on the roster? Well, the team chemistry stuff is always a question, I think. I think this team has enough turnover that, there's some chemistry, but you're you're starting fresh to some degree next year with a lot of new faces. So I don't know. The one thing, you never know if, Purdue doesn't really have a point guard right now. So if Purdue goes and gets a point guard in the portal, I don't know that you're really pissing anyone off because no one's really there for that spot. If you get another off-ball guard, I don't know that Ethan Morton or Brandon Newman would be stunned at that. I don't know. But I think Purdue's in a good spot to add guys, and you never know what players think. What freshmen, red shirts included, will have the biggest impact on next season? Trey Kaufman-Renn is my pick there. I think he'll get some good minutes at the 4. I'm excited to see what he can do. He's a top 50 recruit, had interest from North Carolina, from Virginia, big-time recruit who Purdue was beyond blessed to be able to redshirt this year, but I'm going with him, and I'm very interested to see what Brian Waddell can do because all we've heard is glowing things about Waddell. I am very excited to see him. Some closing thoughts here. Obviously, Purdue has the spring game on Saturday for spring football, putting a wrap to that. Crazy that that's already here, but I'll be there taking notes for next week's show. We will dive back into football. If you're coming by the spring game, come say hi, tweet at me. We'll meet up, say hello. Should be good if it's maybe a little chilly there, but it'll be good to be in Ross-Ade. As I brought up, just with the Big Ten, the guards in the Final Four are so much better than what you see in the Big Ten. That's your biggest gap if you're the Big Ten. The Big Ten has really good post play. Guard play wins in March. You saw that last night. Big Ten guards don't do what Caleb Love does. Big Ten guards don't do what, and I guess Ochai Agbaji is more a forward, but, Big Ten guards just don't do that stuff. That's your gap if you're the Big Ten. And then Kansas is a game away from winning a national championship before they are likely to get a postseason ban next year, and Bill Self is going to be suspended. The NCAA has to find a way to be better at enforcing these punishments if you want to actually discourage it. Because if Kansas wins the national title, and I don't know what their punishment will be. If it's a 1-year postseason ban, Kansas is going to be fine. If it's a suspension to Bill Self, they're not going to fire him. There's just not the incentive to at this point when they're winning at the level they are. The NCAA has got to figure out how to be better at punishing schools. That's all I have for you today. Thank you for spending some time with me. As always, if you don't already, follow the show on Twitter @BoilersBeyond. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so that you never miss an episode. Next week, as I said, back to football for the first time since the first episode of January. Looking forward to that. Got baseball starting this week. Go Cubs. Very excited there. And hey, until next time, enjoy the last basketball game until November.